Welcome, everyone, to Kisma and the Dark Yogi podcast. The topic for today is when bad things happen. Hello, this is Kisma, and welcome to Kisma and the Dark Yogi, brought to you by SourceMovement.com. We're here for people who want to be radically authentic and courageously vulnerable. So whether you're a yoga teacher, entrepreneur, or leader building a tribe, we're here to get your energy and mindset positioned for success. No more stress, no more lack of energy. It's time to lead with your full potential. Our intention is to leave the world a better place than we found it and inspire you to do the same. So hey, if this message in our podcast resonates with you and you've not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to Kisma and the Dark Yogi on iTunes. And while you're at it, give us a rating and let us know what you think. If you have someone in your life that would enjoy this conversation, share it with them. Want more information about the movement? Just go to SourceMovement.com. So let's get started, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Kisma and the Dark Yogi. Hey everyone, welcome. Really glad you're here. Thanks so much for checking out this podcast of Kisma and the Dark Yogi. And today we are going to talk about this sensitive subject when bad things happen. And I've got the Dark Yogi here, Nick Hansinger. And Nick, tell me a little bit about when bad things happen.
Well, I think looking at our world today, there's a lot of disturbing things that we see. And it's not enough that this is happening every day in the world, but I mean, just your everyday average TV show has like a fair amount of violent acts and all kinds of conflict and negativity. So, you know, it seems to be everywhere that we look. And I think at the end of the day, you know, all the bad things that, you know, quote unquote bad things that we see happening can be really disturbing for people and really drag people down. So one, that's why I feel like it's important to talk about, to see like, well, what's really going on here for people? And two is to be like, well, what can we do about it?
Totally. And you mentioned TV shows. Yes, there's so many. I know we're watching a few of them. But what about the media? I mean, all one has to do is turn on their local news or CNN or Fox or whatever, and there seems to be replay after replay after replay of an incident. And seemingly when we see that or listen to it over and over again, it's just going to exacerbate the feelings within. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree with that, yeah. So number one thing you can do is, you know, don't watch that. Mm-hmm. You know enough. Like, you know, you'll get the information that you need. You do not need to go seeking for it. You'll find out, you know, if you really need to know something, and it's okay to take a time out from those sorts of things because they can be really disturbing and very ungrounding, right? So what happens then is it activates that fear and anxiety that's already there within you, and then it keeps creating more and more of that.
Layers,
you know?
yeah. Well, I can share a quick story. You know, Zoe and I lived in Hong Kong for 8 or 9 years, and we moved back to the States July 18th, 2006.
The day after my birthday.
That's right. And I remember we were at my dear, dear friend Sharon's house, and Zoe was 11 at the time. And for anyone who's never been to Hong Kong or not lived there, it is one of the safest places in the world. It's just crazy safe. There are no guns, and I'm not here to start the gun conversation, but there are just no guns, and there's little crime. So we moved back here, and we're staying in a beautiful suburb of Detroit called Grosse Pointe, but the news is on, right? The Detroit news is on. And I remember Zoe sitting there watching the TV, and the news is on, and all of a sudden she looks at me and she's like, "Mom, this place doesn't seem very safe." And I'm like, turn it off. We're never going to watch that again. And, you know, we really never watched it. Like, there was the check-in, being the responsible citizen, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the community. But I was like, that's it. We're not having that news on our TV.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's so important, is to really be grounded in what you consume, and really try to vet it and make sure that it's of the highest quality yourself, right? Because when you're just looking at some of that stuff, it just is it's so crazy. But let's talk about like when bad things happen. Like, what in your mind say like we had an event like Paris,
Yeah.
right? And it's tragic and it's shocking, I think, to the world. So in your mind, like what goes down when something like that happens, within the culture and within the world, as people respond to that?
There's a couple things that came up for me, and the Paris tragedy, I think, was 2 weeks ago, and it's still on everybody's mind, and understandably. But you mentioned earlier how people get activated, and I saw that in Zoe, an 11-year-old, just watching the news, and she became fearful. She became scared. I mean, if I had looked at her energy field, it would have been very reactive. And I believe what happens in our minds, or in many people's minds, is not understanding that every single day there's things going on that we should really want to never happen to people. Yet it often takes a very large, tragic event that affects many people at once for us to go, oh, this is really bad. This isn't good. And sadly, it's like the reverse of the spirituality. I remember our guru, Swami Parthasarathy, said to us once, to be able to look at a blade of grass and see beauty and spirituality in that is really the test of your spirituality. And some people need to go to Niagara Falls and see that in order to feel the wonderment of nature. So it's a little bit of the opposite.
It's like the opposite of it needs to be so shocking.
So shocking.
In order to bring people back to the reality that this sorts of things are actually happening every single day.
Yes.
Really on a similar scale, just not all at once
not
in one
contained.
place. Right,
exactly.
Yeah, and it is shocking, and I think also another
train of truth.
The train of truth.
Train of truth. Here it comes.
And there it goes.
Yeah.
And there it goes. And to bring us back to where, like, shock us back to reality of like this is happening and this is real, and also in a country that is not really too unlike ours.
And so bringing us back, this is happening, this is real. However, what can we do to not absorb more of that, to not pull it into our field, and to do something for those people going through it, to do something for our country, other countries, and really the planet, the entire planet? What can we do?
Well, I think the answer for that is always the same. The answer for that is to continue to work on yourself.
How's that work?
Well, in a couple of ways. That's a great question. But first is all of the fear and anxiety that's activated in you, right? That is the piece that you really have to look at first. Because that didn't come from nowhere. It's not because of the outside. The outside was just something that activated what was already there. So all of the fear and all the anxiety and all the judgment and all the criticism and all of that comes up, that is really important for you to look at in yourself. Right? That's number one. What am I so afraid of?
And what that brings to my mind is, for instance, when Paris happened, I know we sent an email out and offered some words, a mantra, a meditation. Here's what you can do. And then, at the PS, I had, by the way, we have this awesome webinar or something going on. It's going to be really productive and appropriate. But so many people shot back emails, and it would be at one end or the other. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was exactly what I need to hear. Or some sort of hate mail, which was really what I saw, people's stuff just coming up. And they didn't know what else to do but just type it in and send it to us.
Yeah, it just explodes everywhere. So that's the other part of like, you must hold your own space.
Hold your own space.
Because everybody's stuff is super activated. And so there's just all of this anger and frustration and confusion.
Lots of confusion, lots of chaos.
It's going everywhere. And people, they don't know how to, your average everyday person does not understand how to express that in a productive way or how to process that in a productive way. So it just comes out in all these really awkward, conflicting ways that can be really hurtful. And if you don't know how to hold your space among that and just be present to that without being reactive, then you're going to find yourself in a new argument,
Right.
about this
Right.
and right and wrong and how can you think that and all this other kind of, which just makes it worse, right? But when you can just hold a space for that, then at least you don't have to be involved with that. They can do what they're going to do. You do what you're going to do.
Got it. And I bet a lot of you perhaps saw in your circle of friends or at work or maybe your intimate relationships, did something get fired up? Like after that tragedy in Paris or whatever other tragedy, sadly, that you can remember, did you notice that people started, of course they were disturbed, but that other things, seemingly simple things would trigger people. They would get angry and all of a sudden you're in an argument. And so I believe, Nick, that's what you're saying is the clearer that we get, the more certain that we are within, the more knowing of our organic, original nature of infinite awareness. Then we can hold the space rather than be reactive to another, is really be more compassionate. Because the gift here is when you see it as energy coming from a person. Oh, they're coming from, they're in fear, they're in victim, they're in martyr, whatever it is, there's an energy rising out of that person that has nothing to do with you. This is not about you. And you can hold a space of compassion, of steadiness. Chances are that person's actually going to calm down sooner. Or if they don't, that's still not your gig. It is just not your gig.
Yeah. People are what they are and they do what they do.
Yes.
And I don't know, it really is that simple. But the more entangled you become with right and wrong, good or bad, this person should be that way, they should be another way, they should think more like me, all this stuff, it's just going to create more conflict and more of the same. And when what we need most are level heads and people shining light.
Yeah. People shining light, loving hearts. So let's look at that big picture then again. When these things happen in the world and we seemingly feel so hopeless, what can we do? Like you say, work on yourself. What do we go to Tony Robbins and walk on fire or break through a brick? I mean, jump up and down. Like, what do we really do?
You have to observe. You have to first observe what is coming up in you and do anything that you know how to do to resolve that.
One thing,
right?
I'll just give a quick note is be meticulous in your thoughts. I'm going to say that again. Be meticulous in your thoughts because it is possible to redirect your thoughts. Is it easy? Not always, especially when someone has reactions in front of you or you're reacting or whatever, but you can. You can always elevate your thoughts to the highest, and that's going to come from what? Love.
Absolutely.
Love, compassion.
Well, there's a fine line, though, as long as we're talking about this, though. There's a really fine line between redirecting and suppressing.
Oh, totally.
So what a lot of people then do also, people that don't want to deal with that or just kind of like knuckle down and like, I'm going to be the strong one or whatever, and then they never address those emotions. Well, they're going to come out sooner or later some way or another. So when we say resolve them, or when I say resolve them, what I mean specifically is like you have to look at that with yourself and come to terms with exactly how you feel before you can then redirect, in some positive way, right? So whether that's journaling for you, journaling is fantastic, right? Get it out on paper. Get it out of your head.
Up and out.
Out of your head, down on paper so you can look at it and be like, wow, that's what was in there. Right? Because sometimes that's kind of shocking.
It is kind of shocking.
You see something come out on paper and you're like, wow, I can't believe I thought that.
Right.
Right? So you have to get it out so that you can really process it. I mean, that's that's our work is 100% centered around resolving those things permanently. But use whatever tools you have, and journaling is a fantastic tool for that.
Journaling is going outside, doing like a laughing Buddha exercise. That sounds really weird, but really start laughing, get the emotions going up and out, because the last thing you want to look, a bunch of affirmations, by the way, will not work. Your pretty affirmations are going to make you smile, but in 10 minutes, they're done because all of that is still within you. So it's up and out, really getting it up and out and understanding that as you do that, don't be in the judgment process during it. So stay away from judging yourself. Like Nick said, okay, I'm going to journal my thoughts. You read it, you might be shocked. Do not judge. Because judging is really about fracturing the soul energy, and we want our soul energy to come back to us. We want our soul energy to be sparkling, to be light, and to be bright.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the self-judgment's not going to help. Judging anybody, especially at a time like that, is not going to help anything.
But this is tricky, though. This is tricky because some people did some really bad things.
People are what they are, and they do what they do, right? And I'm just going to say it. I'll probably get a few haters for this one, but you know what? The terrorists need love more than anybody.
Yes.
And they're the hardest ones to love. And for me, I can only say for myself that that's where my work is. It's super easy to love on the victims.
Yeah.
And they need it too. God, they need it so much. Like they need so much love for healing.
Their families need it. Their cities need it.
Right. But when you pick a side like that, now you're back in the conflict and the polarization. And the polarization and the conflict is what caused it in the first place. So that's why I'm saying we have to step out of that and be purely objective. That's the level head. That's the voice of reason. That's what's needed more than anything so that these sorts of things can resolve. Be the light, shed the light, share the love. There's enough love for everybody.
And this is just so I can clarify, this is not love, light, and clueless that there are no repercussions or consequences for someone who breaks the law or does a terrible deed. Like there's definitely consequences.
There are legal consequences, there are cultural consequences, and there are spiritual consequences.
There are spiritual consequences.
Like, no question about it, but that is not your business.
Unless you're sitting on that bench as a judge.
Well, then that's your job.
That's the job.
But as a citizen of the world, it really is not our job to judge and get into that whole thing. It is our job to uphold truth and light and love and wisdom.
Oh, so think about that, everyone. If truly each and every one of us upheld light, love, truth, and wisdom, I want you to say those words out loud. Light, love, truth, and wisdom, because just as you speak them, you will notice your frequency begins to elevate. You'll notice that you actually expand energetically rather than hate and judgment and guilty and shame.
That's when you become powerful.
Yes, the light, love, truth, and wisdom.
Absolutely.
Totally. So that's it, man, everyone. Light, love, truth, and wisdom. If you're having trouble with that on any scale, here's a little tip. Place your left hand on your heart when you speak. Left hand on your heart, come from the highest love, compassion, and understand everybody's walking their gig, and another person's gig is not your gig. Your gig is to absolutely 100% take care of yourself, love yourself, clear yourself, and do what you can for the planet.
Embody love, embody your full potential, and be powerful.
Man, embody your full potential. Go.
That is what we need most.
That is.
So go do that.
A bunch of full potentials running around on this planet. Come on, guys. You can do it.
That changes the game. That's
it truly
game.
Does.
It really is a game changer. And there's scientific proof that backs that up. We'll talk about that another time. Anyway, I think
awesome.
Go embody your full potential. Go be love, everybody.
Go be love. So happy that you checked out this episode of Kisma the Dark Yogi. If you know someone that would enjoy it, please share it with them and rate and review on iTunes. And much, much love.
Namaste. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Kisma and the Dark Yogi. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you've got somebody in your life that you think would really like this show, go ahead and share it with them. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Stitcher and SoundCloud as well. Look for Kisma and the Dark Yogi. We'd love to hear from you, so please give us a rating and a review. That would really help us in getting the message out there, and we'd greatly appreciate it. If you have questions or would like to hear us talk about something on the show, please drop us a line at podcast@sourcemovement.com. That's podcast@sourcemovement.com. Until the next time, namaste.